History, as we're often taught, is a straight line, moving steadily forward from primitive beginnings to modern progress. But sometimes, buried beneath the sands of time or resting silently at the bottom of the sea, we find fragments that challenge that narrative. They suggest something else, a past more advanced, more mysterious, and far less understood than we've been led to believe. This journey through historic events with a mysterious twist isn't about myths or legends. It's about real discoveries, real documents, real puzzles. Each chapter is rooted in recorded history, but with an edge of the unexplained, enigmas that historians have struggled to decode for generations. Our first mystery begins not in a desert or temple, but beneath the Aegean Sea, where one of the most extraordinary and perplexing artifacts of the ancient world was found. In 1901, off the rocky coast of the Greek island Antikythera, a group of sponge divers made a remarkable discovery. Deep in the wreckage of an ancient Roman cargo ship, they found statues, coins, and broken pottery, typical treasures from a sunken vessel. But among the ruins was something strange, a lump of greenish-bronze metal, seemingly fused with rock. For years, it was dismissed as a corroded navigational tool. But as technology improved, scientists began to realize they were looking at something far more complex. Beneath the corrosion were dozens of intricately meshed bronze gears and inscriptions, mechanical parts more suited to a modern clock than an ancient shipwreck. This was the Antikythera mechanism, and it would go on to be known as the world's oldest known analog computer. Dated to around 100 BCE, the device was capable of predicting solar eclipses, tracking the positions of the sun and moon, and even following the complicated 19-year metonic cycle used in ancient Greek calendars. Its engineering was so sophisticated that it wouldn't be matched again until the development of astronomical clocks in medieval Europe, over 1,000 years later. How could such a device exist in the ancient world, with no mention in the historical record, no known predecessor, and no obvious successor? Not a single similar mechanism has ever been recovered. There are no blueprints, no surviving workshop, and no mention of its creators. It stands alone, an orphan of ancient genius. Some researchers believe it may have been a product of the minds working in or around Alexandria, perhaps even influenced by the work of Archimedes. But even that doesn't explain the sudden appearance of such advanced engineering. Others propose something far more radical, that the Antikythera mechanism could be evidence of a forgotten chapter in human history, a glimpse into a level of technological knowledge lost in the collapse of ancient civilizations. Was it part of a broader tradition that vanished in the fires of war and the fall of empires? Or was it a one-of-a-kind miracle of craftsmanship, made by a lone genius whose name has long since disappeared? The Antikythera mechanism remains one of the most compelling unsolved puzzles of archaeology. It is undeniably real, sitting today in a museum in Athens, studied by teams of scholars and engineers. And yet, no matter how much we learn about its function, its origin remains a riddle. It raises a quiet but powerful question. If something this advanced could be lost to time for over 2,000 years, what else might be waiting to be discovered? Few monuments are as instantly recognizable, or as enigmatic, as the Great Sphinx of Giza, towering silently on the edge of the desert. Its lion's body and human face have stared out across the sands for thousands of years. Traditionally, historians have dated the Sphinx to around 2,500 BCE, placing its construction during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, one of the rulers of Egypt's Old Kingdom. This timeline has long been accepted as fact, taught in textbooks, and echoed in documentaries. But in the 1990s, a small group of geologists and researchers challenged that story with a startling claim. The Sphinx might be far older than we ever imagined. The controversy began when geologist Dr. Robert Schoch examined the erosion patterns on the body of the Sphinx. Unlike the wind-driven weathering found on other monuments nearby, the Sphinx showed deep vertical fissures, marks consistent not with desert sandstorms, but with heavy, sustained rainfall. That might seem unremarkable, until you consider that Egypt hasn't seen that kind of rainfall for over 7,000 years. According to Schoch and others, the erosion on the Sphinx suggests it may have been built as early as 7,000 BCE, or even earlier, predating the Egyptian civilization itself by thousands of years. In other words, the Sphinx could be a relic not of ancient Egypt, but of a forgotten culture that came before. Mainstream Egyptologists were quick to reject the theory. The idea that a civilization capable of carving a monument as large and sophisticated as the Sphinx existed during the Neolithic period, long before the invention of the wheel or written language, simply didn't fit within the established historical timeline. And yet, the geological evidence remains. The erosion doesn't lie. If the Sphinx is as old as it appears, then it forces us to reconsider everything we think we know about the origins of human civilization in North Africa. There's another clue hidden in plain sight. The head of the Sphinx appears disproportionate to its body. Some researchers believe it may have originally had the face of a lion or another animal, and that the current head, smaller and more human-like, was recarved at a later time, possibly during the dynastic Egyptian period. If true, this suggests that the Sphinx itself was repurposed by later cultures, just as the Romans once built temples atop ancient Greek foundations. It would also explain why no inscriptions exist on the Sphinx to link it definitively to Khafre or any known pharaoh. So who carved the Sphinx? And why did they place it in the desert, facing directly east, aligned with the rising sun during the spring equinox? Could it have been built by a civilization that flourished during a forgotten era of abundance, when the Sahara was green and rivers flowed across what is now dry land? Or is it the last monument of a culture long lost to myth, Atlantis, perhaps, or some unnamed precursor to Egypt? As with so many of history's greatest mysteries, the evidence invites more questions than answers. The Sphinx, like the Antikythera mechanism, stands as a challenge to conventional history. It asks us to look again, to question our timelines, and to admit that we may not have all the pieces to humanity's story. And if the oldest structure in Egypt isn't Egyptian at all, what else have we misunderstood? In the dry hills of southeastern Turkey lies a site that has completely rewritten our understanding of human history. Its name is Göbekli Tepe, an ancient, sprawling complex of carved stone pillars and ceremonial enclosures that, at first glance, looks like something out of the later Mesopotamian or Egyptian periods. But the truth is far more astonishing. Radiocarbon dating has confirmed that Göbekli Tepe was built over 11,000 years ago, long before the invention of agriculture, writing, or the wheel. This was a time when humanity was still supposed to be living in small nomadic bands, concerned more with survival than sacred architecture. And yet, here stands a temple-like structure, built by prehistoric hands, with a level of sophistication that defies everything we thought we knew about the Stone Age. The site is composed of enormous T-shaped pillars, many weighing several tons, arranged in circular formations. Some are engraved with intricate carvings of animals, foxes, snakes, scorpions, vultures, etched with a precision and symbolism that hint at a deep spiritual or astronomical understanding. What's even more perplexing is that Göbekli Tepe appears to have been deliberately buried by the very people who built it. Around 8000 BCE, the site was covered in earth and debris, almost as if it were being preserved for a future time. Who were these ancient people? How did they quarry, shape, and move such massive stones without metal tools or domesticated beasts? And perhaps most importantly, why build such a place at all, during a time when even basic farming had not yet begun? Until its discovery in the 1990s, scholars believed that complex society came after agriculture, that the ability to settle down and grow food led to the rise of temples, cities, and religion. But Göbekli Tepe flips that theory on its head. It suggests that spiritual belief may have come first, inspiring our ancestors to come together and organize labor on a massive scale. In other words, it wasn't farming that led to civilization, it was faith. And yet, even this explanation struggles to satisfy. The scale and effort required to build Göbekli Tepe imply a level of social coordination far beyond what we associate with pre-agricultural peoples. No one knows the name of its builders. No language or written record from them has survived. It's as if a whole chapter of human development was skipped over, lost in time, only to be rediscovered by accident thousands of years later. Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that Göbekli Tepe may not have been the first of its kind, but simply the best preserved. If this is true, there could be other sites still buried under centuries of soil, waiting to be found. Others point to astronomical alignments in the site's layout, hinting at a forgotten knowledge of the stars. Whatever the truth, Göbekli Tepe is more than an archaeological anomaly. It is a riddle carved in stone, standing as proof that our ancestors were capable of greatness long before history gave them credit. Like the Sphinx and the Antikythera mechanism, Göbekli Tepe challenges the straight line of history we've grown comfortable with. It asks us to imagine a world in which advanced thinking didn't begin in the cities of Mesopotamia, but in sacred hills, long before the written word. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, deep in the remote Siberian wilderness near the Podkamenia Tunguska River, something extraordinary happened, an event so powerful that it flattened over 800 square miles of forest, knocking down an estimated 80 million trees. The explosion was heard as far as 600 miles away. Witnesses described a blinding flash of light, a searing heat, and a shockwave that shattered windows and knocked people off their feet hundreds of miles from the epicenter. Yet, when scientists finally reached the blast zone nearly 2 decades later, they were met with a confounding sight. No crater, no impact site, no fragments of any meteorite or comet. Just scorched earth and trees flattened in a radial pattern, like matchsticks in every direction from a single, invisible center. The leading explanation today is that a small asteroid or icy comet, roughly the size of a 10-story building, entered Earth's atmosphere and exploded mid-air, about 5 to 10 kilometers above the surface. This so-called airburst released energy equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And yet, despite that level of destruction, no definitive physical evidence of the object itself has ever been recovered. Scientists admit it's one of the most dramatic cosmic events in recorded history, and yet it remains frustratingly elusive. Over the years, alternative theories have taken root. Some believe it was a micro-black hole that passed through the Earth, a theoretical event that would have left no debris. Others suggest a chunk of antimatter, which would have annihilated on contact with the atmosphere, producing an immense burst of energy without any remaining fragments. And then, of course, there are those who point to more unconventional possibilities: an early, accidental experiment with nuclear energy, or even an extraterrestrial craft that exploded above the forest, its technology lost or covered up. Adding fuel to the mystery, eyewitness accounts describe more than just a flash and a boom. A local man named Semyon Semenov, who was sitting on his porch over 40 miles away, recalled being blown off his chair by the shockwave. His shirt caught fire, and he felt intense heat, followed by a loud sky-splitting sound. Others claimed the sky remained strangely illuminated for days afterward. Some reported seeing strange lights and objects in the sky in the days leading up to the explosion. Even today, wild rumors swirl around the Tunguska site. Talk of magnetic anomalies, rapid plant growth, or animals avoiding the area entirely. Though many scientists accept the asteroid airburst theory as the most plausible explanation, the Tunguska event remains one of the most baffling natural disasters in modern history. It reminds us that even in the age of photographs and telegrams, there are moments that defy neat explanations. For over a century, experts have studied it, mapped it, modeled it, and still, no one can say with absolute certainty what exploded above that forest. There was no crater, no trace, no warning, just an unimaginable force from the sky, and the scorched silence it left behind. Like the ancient enigmas before it, Tunguska sits at the edge of what we understand, half science, half myth, all mystery. And it asks a haunting question: what else is still out there, just beyond our reach? World War II was a conflict defined by brutal technology and industrial might. But behind the scenes, within the ranks of the Nazi elite, there existed a darker, stranger obsession: the pursuit of ancient power and occult knowledge. While most history books focus on battles and invasions, few mention that the Nazi regime funded dozens of expeditions across the globe, not for conquest, but for myth. Under the direction of Heinrich Himmler, one of Hitler's most powerful men, the SS established a secretive organization called the Ahnenerbe. Its mission was unlike anything seen in modern warfare: to prove the superiority of the so-called Aryan race through archaeology, mythology, and esoteric science. The Ahnenerb's activities read more like the plot of a thriller than historical fact. In the 1930s, its agents traveled to Tibet in search of the roots of the Aryan bloodline, guided not by maps, but by ancient texts and legends. They studied runes, Viking relics, and pagan rituals. Some expeditions aimed to uncover lost cities. Others sought ancient artifacts rumored to possess supernatural power. One of the most famous legends they chased was the Spear of Destiny, said to be the Roman spear that pierced the side of Christ during the crucifixion. According to medieval myth, whoever possessed the spear would hold the power to control the world. Hitler allegedly believed in the legend deeply, so much so that he seized the spear from a museum in Austria early in his rise to power. Their obsession didn't end there. The Nazis were also rumored to be searching for Atlantis, believing it to be the lost homeland of the Aryan people. Some reports claim they explored caves in Antarctica, hoping to find remnants of a forgotten civilization or even hollow earth entrances, ideas pulled straight from fringe theories and occult literature. Within Germany itself, the Ahnenerbe conducted disturbing experiments to reconnect with ancient pagan traditions, blending pseudoscience with twisted ideology. These weren't just eccentric interests, they were part of the regime's broader attempt to rewrite history in their own image. But here's the most chilling part. Much of the information gathered by these expeditions vanished after the war. Some documents were seized by the Allies and locked away in classified archives. Others were lost in the chaos of Nazi Germany's collapse. What we know today comes from fragmented files, scattered testimonies, and photographs that hint at a deeper, stranger truth. Could some of the world's most dangerous men have genuinely believed they could tap into ancient forces to alter the future? And if so, what exactly did they find? The idea that a regime rooted in brutality also invested heavily in the occult may seem unbelievable, but the historical record supports it. These were not isolated events or secret side projects. They were institutionally supported, meticulously planned, and deeply believed. And while many historians write them off as desperate superstition, others suggest there may have been more to these missions than fantasy alone. In the end, the Nazi occult expeditions remain a shadowy footnote in the grand story of World War II, but one that reveals just how far powerful people will go when ideology meets myth. They remind us that some of history's darkest moments weren't only driven by guns and tanks, but by ancient symbols, buried legends, and a belief in secrets too dangerous to be found.